Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Joshua Bridwell Show. This is the podcast where I talk about your personal, professional, and spiritual growth, and where we will eventually take live calls to help you go from stuck to growth. I am your host, Joshua Bridwell, and today we are going to be talking about social media. The average person spends about 2 hours and 24 minutes a day on social media, so this is a pretty big topic that we need to talk about. We've been told that social media is this harmless thing that's supposed to be fun, a place to connect, a place to grow. And don't get me wrong, social media in and of itself is amoral. It is just a tool in the same way that somebody can take a brick and break a window, or take that same brick and build a school or build a hospital. The brick is amoral. Social media is very similar, but lately it's become something that is much more damaging, and not just to teens but to you as well. And this week, states like California are starting to roll out tobacco style warnings to people that are under 18 on social media. And governments and school boards are also saying, hey, maybe social media is not as safe as we thought it was. But yet, here you are, you're using platforms daily, you're posting, you're scrolling, you're comparing. And the difference, really the only difference, is that you're older than teen years. You think that you've got it together, but the truth is, if social media is messing with our teens, it's messing with you too. You're not above that. So today I'm going to be talking about how social media is sabotaging your confidence, your professionalism, your spiritual clarity, and what you can do to actually reclaim your mind, your mission, and your overall identity. So I want to tell you that there were days where I'd hop on social media and I felt really motivated. I felt pumped up. Maybe I'd post something, I would get some likes, my engagement would be up, which, me doing this podcast, me doing stuff on YouTube, I do pay attention to things like that. Even though I was getting engagement, I was getting likes, I thought that's what it meant to win. But then I started to notice something else. I'd compare everything that I was doing behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reels. I'd craft posts. I thought that if I showed growth, I would feel more motivated about myself. But honestly, there were times where even I felt stuck. I'd scan feeds for inspiration, but ultimately, on the other side of it, I would find stress. I would feel anxious. I felt like I just couldn't keep up. And that's when it really hit me. It's not just teens who are in trouble. We're in trouble too, because the game we are playing online, it's rigged for us to lose if we don't see it. We have to know that. Check this out. A recent study found that 48% of teens say social media has a mostly negative effect on people their age. And that's up pretty significantly. It's up from 32% just a few years ago, according to the Pew Research Center. Also, the U.S. Surgeon General says teens who spend more than 3 hours a day on social media double their risk of anxiety and depression. At the same time, major investigations show that platforms like Meta platforms allegedly suppressed safety research about kids in their VR settings. Now, you might say, again, hey, I'm not a teen, but the same factors are at work. Comparison, curated lives, constant scrolling, algorithmic pressure. Confidence is not just a teen issue. You see it all around us today. It's a human issue. And here's how social media kills the confidence in us. We know about comparison. I've talked about comparison on several different episodes of the Joshua Bridwell Show, especially how social media is involved in that. But the bottom line is that you see someone who's farther along, or they seem to be farther along, and you feel like you're behind. You feel like you can't keep up no matter what it is that you do. And as soon as you do catch up with the person, if you catch up with the person that you see, you go find somebody else that you're not caught up with. And it's just going to be this constant comparison game that you can't win. And then the next thing is the highlight reel illusion. You think, oh, if they're doing that, then I need to be doing that too. But you don't see all of the actual struggles that are behind that. And then you have validation dependency. You tie your worth to likes, to comments, to shares instead of your actual identity. And also, social media focuses on image over substance. People craft a brand version of themselves while their true self gets ignored. And also, you forego rest. You scroll when you should be resting. I'm working on an episode right now talking about how you can finish 2025 strong. And in that, one of the things I talk about is fixing your sleep. You post or you scroll when you should be pausing, you should be resting, you should be resetting. You might be adulting, you might be leading a career, a family, your spiritual life, but social media doesn't really care. It invites you into the same trap, and if you're not careful, you'll show up for your life like someone who's chasing likes instead of legacy. So we know that it's this trap, right? It's something that can affect us. It is something that can create anxiety. It's something that can create stress. But what can you do in order to reclaim your confidence? Because this trap is real, and here's a way out. You need to clean your feed. Ask yourself, does this content that I'm consuming each and every day, is this something that is building me? Is this something that is burying me? You also need to limit the scroll. You need to set firm boundaries. Your brain needs margin, just like your body needs rest. You can actually set app limits on your phone. You can go into your phone settings and you can say, okay, I only want access to social media for this long a day in order to help you just kind of regain some of your time back too, not just your mental clarity, but your time. Again, the average person consumes 2 hours and 24 minutes of social media every day. You also need to post from truth, not from strategy. You need to let your actual voice be heard, not what just gets traction. And that's why I'm a little bit more vulnerable in the content that I post on YouTube and here on the podcast. I would say more so than a lot of other creators out there. And I want to be my true self with everybody. And I want to show my fails because nobody is perfect, especially me. And when I learn, I want to share what I learned, even from the School of Hard Knocks, with you. I failed, so you don't have to. You also need to anchor your value in faith, in mission, and identity, not in numbers. Philippians chapter 3, verse 14 says, I press on toward the goal for the prize of the upward call of God in Christ Jesus. And you need to lead offline with integrity. The work you do, the relationships that you have, and that you foster, the growth that you live matter more than feeds and fame. When you do these things, you stop being shaped by the platform. You stop consuming so much of the lives of other people and you start creating a life for yourself. You shape the platform incidentally through the purpose that you believe that you have. And if you are a follower of Jesus, remember this: you're chosen, you're loved, and you're valued. And it's not because of the posts that you make, it's not because of your status, it's not because of your network, but it's because of Him. John chapter 15, verse 5 says, I am the vine, you are the branches. Your worth flows from Him, not from your standing on your feed. Social media, like we said, it is an amoral tool. You need to treat it that way. It is not your identity. So this week, if you're feeling less confident, If you are feeling more distracted, if you're feeling more uncertain about your purpose, your direction in life, it might not be your fault. It might be your screen. You need to keep that in check, but you have the power to turn it around, to live with confidence that's rooted deep, not just visible wide. Deep, not wide. You have that power to turn your life around. And if this episode mattered to you, I want you to share it with someone who needs to know that they're worthy beyond the screen. And if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe if you haven't already, because I'm going to continue to share what I've learned from my fails. I'm going to continue to lead from truth and from vulnerability, and not just things that are trending, but things that are actually going to help you to live the life that God intended for you to live. So I want you to share this with somebody who needs to know that they are worthy beyond the screen. And this has been another episode of the Joshua Bridwell Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Tune in next time. Let's grow.